In today's video, I will share with you how to position your children for success. It is very important to understand that the stages in their life is very important as they prepare for independence in life. Okay? Now, assuming that from ages 1 to 7, your children are with you and you are a present parent. Okay? That's important. It's so important that you understand that after that age 7 going into 8, a lot of time, whatever characters and traits that they're going to pick up, they have already done it. So now you're beginning to speak to them at age 8. Now, they have to determine, or you have to see whether they trust you or whether they're going to rely on you totally as you begin to work with them and position them. Now, I didn't say control them, okay, but position them so that they will have self control and that they will be able to do the things that you are positioning them for. So let's get started as we begin to look at the different ages of our children's development. Number one, age 8 to 10, build character before talent. I think this is very important. Who they become matters when they are going to accomplish anything. Okay. I taught my children that I would not tolerate lying, stealing, and cheating. Okay. Because I knew that if I could get these three rules in them, everything else would take care of themselves. Now, what did I do? I began to participate in what I told them not to do. In other words, I didn't lie to my children. I didn't steal from my children. Okay. And I didn't cheat on my children. Okay. I worked as best I could as a parent to ensure that I didn't violate that so that neither one could come back and say, well, you did this, Dad. That would have broken every rule that I had established. So, number one, I kept it simple on me so that my character wouldn't be out of character with the children. Okay. So, I began to really deal with those rules as they were developing. I began to be very attentive until they got it in their spirit that Dad wasn't going to tolerate that. Dad wasn't going for that. Okay. So, it's very important that we see those things in life. And as I began to deal with the children, I had to learn to give age appropriate chores. There was things that I had them do at a certain age. You're talking about 8 to 10 years old. You don't send a child out at 8 to 10 years old to bag the car out, okay, each morning to let your wife out to go to work. That's just not going to work very well. They got to be very, very disciplined and talented to pull that one off in a sense. Okay. So, in order for them to get to a certain talent in their life, I believe that lying, stealing, and cheating had to be established because, you can have a great talented kid, but if they're a liar, if they're steal, if they're cheat to get to where they're going, then guess what? It's going to be a problem there. And they're going to keep having failure after failure after failure. So it's important to get them ready to go. Let them experience the consequences of their choices. Our children, just like us, are not going to always make the best choices. And they got to understand the consequences of their choices. Okay? You can't just go and do things and expect to get away with it. You don't want your children with that mindset that they can do whatever they want and they won't face consequences or, they won't be disciplined for those choices. Praise effort and integrity, not just results. Okay? I want you to remember that. If you don't remember nothing else, praise them for all that they do and all that they stand for, especially in the area of integrity. So many times we don't value the children's word. We don't value our words. But our words and integrity means a lot. And we have to understand that because it's so important that we do. We have to. And children are always, always carrying integrity inside of them. Teach integrity early. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I did a great job at touching up on the subject of integrity. But as my sons and daughters have gotten older, I discuss integrity more, and I push it to them to put it into their children, my grandchildren, to have integrity, to honor your word, to do the things you're supposed to do. Where you being out of integrity at when you're doing your clothes, when you're cleaning up the house? Where are you out of integrity? And when they get back in integrity, then guess what? You begin to praise your children. You begin to really, really understand where they're coming from. Okay? Now, what I want you to take away from this, if you don't take nothing else, character is the foundation of lasting success. Character. If that child grows up and they don't deal with stealing, cheating, and lying, and they got talent, oh man, they're going to be a force of nature. They're going to really, really, really do some exploits in life. And you'll never, never, never worry about whether they're going to get off point or not because their character, the character that you establish them in them between ages 8 and 10, won't even allow it. And if you don't watch it, they do things subconsciously. They don't know why they don't get into a lot of cheating, stealing and lying. They won't even know why. Why? Because you establish that foundation so they don't wrestle with that thought. They don't even have it in their mind. In other words, it's not even in their DNA. Okay? So that's important. That's important to understand. The foundation is at 8 and 10 when you really start communicating your desire with them so that they can be a success. All right? Let's move on. Number two, ages 11 and 13, okay? Develop discipline and good habits, okay? I want you to see this. Small daily habits create a successful future, okay? Encourage reading every day. Not this thing about just getting on the tablets. See, this tablet thing can be very distracting. What are they doing on that tablet? Are they being educated? Are they seeing different things? Uh, at this age between 11 and 13, if they're diligent readers, they won't have problems just reading and getting into the things that they really desire. Okay? So teach them to read every day. Teach time management. Limit unnecessary screen time. Okay? Like I said, the boob tube. Get them off that TV. All right? Help them finish what they start. I think this one right here is the toughest one because I think we as adults, we go through that. We fail in this area of finishing, okay? Because if we would have gotten this between 11 and 13, guess what? We would finish every task. We would do things undauntedly until we get it done. You got to understand, you're putting something into your children that's fixing to take them to what? Success in life. You won't even have to wonder their decisions. You won't even have to wonder what they're really going to do because you already positioned them. You didn't control them, you positioned them. You got them to where, hey, they bought into something at a time where they didn't even realize that they were buying into something that would do what? Benefit them in the future. Okay? They didn't even realize that. They did it because mama and daddy told them to do it. Okay? And that's the beauty of that. All right. Help them finish what they started. I said that. Okay? Help them finish what they started is very important. All right? Now, remember this. Discipline beats talent when talent lacks discipline. Discipline beats talent when talent lacks discipline. Okay? You can have some of the greatest kids. Let me tell you something. I remember when I first got my first athletic trophy, and I was in a day camp. And I can remember these two guys, they were very talented. And they didn't know that I admired them, because they were talented. But they were not disciplined. And later on in life, I began to realize what went on before they passed. Um, they were great athletes. But I ended up getting the award, Best Athlete. Why? Because of my attitude, because of my behavior, my respect for the coach and the guidances and everything. I didn't have no better sense but to do that. You got to remember, I had a father and a mother at my home, so I love sports and I wanted to do the best I could. But these guys were super talented. Saw them in high school; they were talented. It's just that they didn't have the discipline, and discipline always gonna outbeat, okay, outbeat, okay, talent. Okay. It's going to outbeat it where it's lacking. If it ain't there, it's a goner. It is a goner. Be blessed. So number 14 and number 3, I'm sorry, ages 14 to 16. Discover purpose and practical skills. Okay. Help them explore who they are and what they can contribute. Engage volunteering or part-time work. Think about that. 14 to 16. The average kid that actually become disciplined and able to hold down jobs for any length of time, usually around this time have started engaging in part-time work, volunteering, and they seem to have this discipline about themselves that is able to do things that non-disciplined kids who didn't get into part-time work, who didn't volunteer, they don't have that. They don't have that, and usually they won't have that get up and go. Okay, think about that. Also, teach budgeting and savings. Expose them to different careers. Develop communication and leadership skills. Okay, those are very important skills that if they got that, not that arrogance, okay, not being arrogant, but that skill set in communicating with people in such a way that things get done. People can see where they're headed, how they're going to succeed at this, and they can express themselves. You know, a lot of us, if we tell the truth, we didn't go through this. We didn't deal with this. I had to learn this through trial and error with my own. That some things, if I had to really position them for, I think they would have just shot off and really, really got a lot of things done, more exploits accomplished, but not so much as being egotistic. That's not where I'm at with this. But I'm talking about coming from a place of humility where they grow and understand why they're doing what they're doing. See, think about what I said. Between the ages of 8 and 10, you have put one form of foundation in there, okay? And that's the character foundation. Now you're expounding on that foundation, okay? And that's what's important. That's what you really want to get done. That's what you really want to do is get them developed to communicate. I can see myself where I was failing to communicate in my life and then leadership. These are things that I had to learn in my latter years or older years of adulthood, which could have been dealt with in my younger years, in my teenage years. But, our parents, they have different knowledge, they have different understanding. And sometimes, just the term leadership can sound threatening to a community. I didn't come up in that community like that. But as I grew and understood things, I began to work and take on responsibilities, and now, with my own children and my grandchildren, I desire to see them learn to communicate and carry out leadership because that's part of the success path that they're really going to be on. Okay. Now, I want you to remember this: exposure creates opportunity. Okay. Don't leave your children inside this bubble of your own environment. Take them out, expose them. It would create opportunity because when people see their gifts and their talent, they will begin to say, wow, this child, can communicate. This child has great leadership skill, but most of all, their discipline and their character is so unique within itself that a lot of times people want young people that they can work with, that will deal with, that will listen, that will do the things that they really, really need done to see their programs and to see those children benefit. I remember being in a program called Upward Bound in Memphis. I would get on the bus. My mother gave me bus fare, and sometimes Saturdays I would be on that bus going to Upward Bound. But the people allowed me to keep coming back to the program because of my attitude, because of my character, because of how I carry my mannerism. And my parents were not wealthy people. We was just people that had what they call middle income, but they taught me some things unknowingly and unwittingly that I picked up on, and I really, really, really carried those out as I went into the public, and I became successful. Also, I became successful through the military. I was easy to be approached, but I didn't realize these characteristics that were placed in me, especially by my stepfather, because he just wasn't having it, okay? He just was not going for it. He was going to ensure that you were disciplined to do what you were supposed to do when you were supposed to do and when he said you were supposed to do it, okay? So, but as parents today, we have better ways of of handling our children. So, don't forget, exposure creates opportunity. But without those other areas involved, we'll miss it with our children. Okay. Now, point number four, and remember this, age 17 to 18 and beyond. Sometimes we think it stops at 18. No, no, no. Parenting doesn't stop at 18 because there's still so much to learn. All right. Prepare for independence. Everybody wants their child independence. But the question is, how did you position them for independence? What did you do? How did you do it to get them ready and prepared for independence? Now, that's on the parents. Why? Because you had 18 years to make it happen, to get them to where they really needed to be. And that's what you want. You want children that are independent. You don't want children around the house when they need to be out getting about their business, doing what they supposed to do, enjoying their independence. Okay. Now, this is the catch all phrase. Okay. Raise adults, not dependent children. Think about that. Raise adults, not dependent children. You got to see that. Teach financial literacy and investing, okay? Help them build professional relationships. Encourage wise decision making instead of making every decision for them. You got so many controlling parents, they don't even know a lot of times they're making the decision for the children. Let them take ownership of their future. Okay? Remember that. Let them let them take ownership of that. Okay? Because guess what? Their past has already dictated their future, that they're going to have good character, that they're going to be disciplined, that they're going to understand what it means to get out and grind and get it and make it happen. They're going to already have that. They're going to understand how to expose themselves to opportunity. So let them take advantage and ownership of what you have already positioned them to do. So, you know, don't forget that. Now, last but not least, take this away with you. I want you to hold on to this. Hold on to this with everything you got. All right. The goal of parenting is not to make life easy, okay, but to prepare your child to thrive without you, okay? To thrive without you. My children don't need me today to do anything to help them to get through a lot of minute things, okay? Now, there are some things they come back and they talk to me and bounce off me and what have you. That's fine. But they take care of themselves. They know how to get there. They know how to get up and go to work for themselves. They know what's expected of them daily, okay? So that's where you want your children. You don't want children that's dependent on you. You don't want that because that puts you into a form of control. And what's going to happen if you control them all your life and you leave? Okay, you're gonna have children on young adults or adults on medication. I mean, serious medication. Okay, because they're trying to cope with all the stuff that you didn't tell them and that you didn't put into them to keep them independent in life to keep moving forward. All right. Now, here's my closing thoughts on that. Success doesn't begin when a child graduates, okay? It begins with values, habits, opportunity, and responsibility and intention building, build starting at around 8, okay? They're going to start around 8. You're going to build this around 8. And then by the time they're 18 years old, they're going to move forward in life. All right. If you enjoyed this teaching, don't forget to make comments, subscribe, and share with somebody. Until next time, be blessed.